The city never really sleeps. Not here. Not in the projects. Even in the dead of night, the hum of life vibrates through the streets, cars rushing by, sirens slicing through the silence, footsteps echoing in alleyways. Inside a rundown apartment complex, wedged between crumbling brick walls and rusted fire escapes, a single window glows. One light against the darkness. Inside that room, Tamika sits awake. 19 years old, born and raised in the projects. Her mama always said she had the soul of a poet, but Tamika ain't so sure about that anymore. She sits hunched over her desk, a pen tapping against an empty notebook. The walls around her are covered in words, scribbled poetry taped up like bandages, as if they could hold together the parts of her she's too afraid to lose. But tonight, the words won't come. See, when life starts hitting too hard, sometimes the words stop coming. And for Tamika, life's been throwing punches. The smell of disinfectant, the low, rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. Tamika sits beside the hospital bed, her mother's fingers barely curled around her own. The woman who raised her, who taught her how to put her pain into poetry, now struggling to even whisper her name. "Baby," her mama rasps, squeezing her hand weakly. "You keep writing. You hear me?" Tamika nods, biting back the tears. But she already knows. Her mama won't be here to read them. Her mind flashes back to the day of her mother's funeral. The casket lowered into the ground, the pastor's voice a distant hum lost beneath the pounding in Tamika's chest. She stands still, stiff, her fingers gripping the funeral program so tight it crumples. Tamika alone in the rain, hoodie up, eyes empty. The streetlights blur through the mist, and she clutches her notebook against her chest like a shield. The pages are wet, but she doesn't move. 2 months ago, she lost the one person who always believed in her. The woman who told her to write when she had no one to talk to. Now the pages sit empty, just like her heart. The lamp on her desk flickers, casting long, tired shadows against the walls. Tamika exhales sharply, presses her pen to the paper, forces herself to write. The streets whisper secrets in alleyway corners. My feet walk paths paved with prayers unanswered. God, are you even listening? Her voice is barely a whisper. She reads the words aloud. The pen trembles in her hand. She stares at the page, frowning. Then, in one quick, frustrated motion, she rips it from the notebook and tears it apart. The pieces flutter to the floor, landing among a dozen others just like it. She leans back in her chair, rubbing her hands over her face. Maybe God stopped listening a long time ago. Maybe he never was. A knock at the door startles her. Her body tenses. "Who is it?" A familiar voice, low, rough, but warm. "It's me. Open up." Tamika hesitates, then sighs and pushes herself up. She unlocks the door and pulls it open. Jay stands in the hallway, hoodie up, hands shoved deep into his pockets. His gaze flicks past her, taking in the mess of torn paper on the floor. "You good?" Tamika shrugs, stepping aside to let him in. Jay walks over to the desk, picks up one of the crumpled pages, smoothing it out between his fingers. "Still writing?" She shakes her head. "Nah, ain't got nothing to say." Jay glances at the wall, the one covered in old poems written before everything changed, before her mother got sick, before she stopped believing. "You ever think maybe you already said what you needed to?" he asks. "Maybe you just don't know it yet." Tamika frowns, following his gaze. The light from her desk lamp flickers over the words, and for the first time in months, she really looks at them. Some stand out, as if glowing beneath the dim light. Her stomach twists. "Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil." Her breath catches. She wrote that, but not really. "That ain't poetry, that's scripture." Jay smirks like he already knew. "See, maybe God been listening this whole time. Maybe he just been talking back through you." Tamika stares at her own writing, her pulse loud in her ears. For the first time in a long time, she wonders if she's really been alone after all. The city hums, the clock ticks. and the words she once ignored breathe back at her from the walls. The words won't leave her alone. Tamika lies in bed, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. The glow from the streetlights outside spills through her blinds, painting stripes of light and shadow across her skin. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. She rolls onto her side, squeezes her eyes shut, tries to ignore the way her own handwriting, her own voice, feels like it's haunting her. She told herself she wasn't going to think about it, but it's all she can hear. The kitchen smelled like fried onions and cornbread fresh out the oven. Tamika sat at the old wooden table, hunched over her notebook, pen moving fast across the page. Her mother, standing at the stove, gave her a knowing glance. "Baby, you know what that reminds me of?" Tamika didn't look up. "A poem?" Her mama chuckled, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Nah, a promise." That made her pause. She lifted her head, watching as her mother walked over, tapping a manicured finger against the page. "That's from the Bible, baby. Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death." Tamika blinked. She hadn't realized. Her mother's eyes softened. "But you ain't alone in that valley." Tamika sits up fast, shaking her head like she can shake the memory loose. She swings her legs over the side of the bed, presses her elbows into her knees, and exhales hard. That was years ago, before her mother got sick, before she spent sleepless nights at the hospital, praying so hard her voice cracked, before the silence that followed. If God had really been listening, why did he take her anyway? The question sits heavy in her chest like a stone pressing down. She grabs her hoodie off the chair, shoves it on, and storms out the door. The city don't stop just because she does. Streetlights flicker. The pavement glows under neon signs from liquor stores and bodegas. Smoke curls from sewer grates. Tamika walks fast, hands shoved deep into her pockets, hood pulled low over her face. She just needs air. Then she hears it, a voice, low, rough, aching with something ancient. She slows. On the corner, an old man sits on an overturned milk crate, a battered guitar resting on his knee. His fingers strum soft. But it's his voice that stops her in her tracks. "You ain't alone, child. Never been alone." Tamika's breath catches. Her mama used to hum that same song. Coincidence? Maybe. But the words press against her ribs, settle in places she thought had gone numb. She swallows hard and keeps walking, but the song follows her, floating through the night air like a whisper meant just for her. She doesn't even think before she knocks. A few seconds later, Jay swings the door open, eyebrows raised. "Dang, T, what? I need to hear it," she blurts. Jay frowns. "Hear what?" She steps inside, arms crossed over her chest, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "The psalm, the one on my wall. I need to hear the rest." Jay studies her, his expression unreadable. Then, after a beat, he pulls out his phone, scrolls for a second and starts reading. "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me." Tamika closes her eyes. "For thou art with me." The words settle over her like a weight. Heavy, familiar, true. Her hands tremble. She sinks onto the couch, pressing her palms into her knees. Jay's voice is softer now. You okay?" She nods, but a tear slips down her cheek anyway. She lets it. Maybe the silence had never been empty. Maybe she just didn't know how to listen. The city hums outside. The night stretches on. And for the first time in a long time, something shifts inside her. Something like hope.